Okay, 5 minutes on changing my YouTube name. So, actually, yesterday's post about changing your name, I think I did mention, like, very briefly, how I had the idea for a new label, a new name for my YouTube, but I didn't really like go into it much, and instead, like talked about changing my own personal name from Chris to Gift. And I thought that today I'd spend my 5 minutes. And honestly, I am really going to try to get back to just being like, 5 minute posts, like 5 or 10 minute at most, because, like 20 minutes is a long time. And I noticed that if I talk for 20 minutes, there's just a lot of like ranty kind of stuff in there. So I am going to try to practice getting back to just being like quick, concise, 5 minute journal entry here on my YouTube. And I thought that I would like clarify the whole like idea with changing the name from empathetic disruptor to nobody's watching. So empathetic disruptor is this like thing. I talked about that already, but nobody's watching is cool because, I'm thinking a lot about, you know, what would I say and how would I be, how would I act if I felt like nobody was watching? Would I be as self-conscious? Would I be so careful with my words? Or would I just be myself, be my true self? Now, obviously, very quickly, my mind wants to be like, yeah, but, you know, if nobody's watching, will you put your best self forward? Will you care about articulating your points as much? I mean, isn't it a benefit to think like, what if a ton of people are watching this so that I kind of check myself and make sure that what I'm saying has depth, has quality, and like everything I'm doing is being presented really well, as if a lot of people are watching. And I swear I've seen other podcasters or people out there, everybody's got a thing, present this idea a little bit, like almost like pretend like everybody's watching, and then maybe the thinking is you'll be your best self, and that's a positive thing. But I don't know. I think there's a flip side to that. I notice that when I see my YouTube views and I see like, all right, so, on a good post, I've got maybe 10 views. I think maybe the most viewed post that I've had so far in like 70 plus videos is like, I don't know, 20 views, 30 views, maybe something like that. Pretty low, honestly. I mean, even the podcasts, just like the audio podcasts that I was putting on Spotify had like way more views. I'm not talking like thousands, but most of those audio posts on Spotify would get like 100 listens, which it, even when I would see that, I would think that seems really low. But actually, now I realize that's really high. And then the other thing that baffles me is like, how is how is what I'm posting on Spotify getting a lot more listens? I don't really understand. And what I'm putting on YouTube gets like no views. Anyways, I've got 1 minute left. See, I gotta catch myself. But yeah, like I see the low views and I think, well, if nobody's watching, then I've got nothing really to lose. I've got there's no reason why I can't just say what I want to say and be feel less held back or constricted because nobody's watching. And anyways, there was something about that, nobody's watching, that kind of like inspired me in some way to think about that concept of, what if nobody's watching? What would I do? How would I be? Would I care as much? And I think the truth is that this project YouTube specifically, like I've said many times, is a project of trying not to care so much about the outcome, trying not to care about things like views, trying not to care so much about, whether or not what I'm making is good or there's a point or, a video post has some kind of like depth. Because as I've said, and I think, a few videos now, like that's something that I think that we're really starting to miss out on in our lives that we had before. I mean, I think it still exists in some ways, but, you know, when I was younger, for myself anyways, there was so much opportunity to do things that nobody would see, nobody would criticize, nobody would judge. I mean, you take photos or you take pictures, photos with a camera, print out some pictures, and I mean, mostly just you look at them. Maybe you'd show them to your friends, or your friends would come over and see them. Like, there were so many things we did back in the day, because I'm old now, but that we did them just for the pure pleasure of the activity and the process. And that was not only good enough, but really fun and really amazing. And I think one of the reasons why it was more fun was because we didn't have the pressure of feeling like a lot of people were watching and a lot of people would be judging. I think the situation now with almost everything I make becomes public these days, which I'm fine with. Okay. Like if I share all my photos, I share what I'm thinking. It's just like, it went from celebrities being, public figures to like everybody being a public figure and nobody really having any privacy. And it's not about privacy, but just this fact that like that I think has brought in so much more pressure for getting things right, doing things to a certain level. And of course, right, like doing things well, being good at something, a lot of value. But like, I think that not having the space to create without judgment means that most of us never allow ourselves to practice something long enough, get it wrong so many times that we finally get it right and become good at it. It was so much easier back in my day to do that, right? Like, I made so much garbage on Photoshop in high school. Just, I'm so happy it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, literally, there's no physical copies, no digital copies. And I'm sure that it was just ridiculous, right? Like, thank God that's not like on the internet somewhere. I mean, that's what's the word for like just having that privilege to be like practicing, making shit, making garbage, and then nobody sees the process of getting to a point where you're like, oh, this is pretty good, this is like good enough to show people or whatever. But so now I think what I feel like happens to a lot of us is that because everything's public and we don't have that space, we want to go right from, like getting into something. Let's say I got into making miniature models. I want to buy a model and go right from buying the model to being like really good at it and showing it and being like, wow, it's amazing. It looks sweet, you know, and that's just like almost never going to happen. I mean, the motorcycle I made looks okay, but I did mess up quite a lot of it. But, you know, obviously right away I'm going to like put that online and show people. So there's that pressure. Anyways, wow, 10 minutes. Okay, I'm capping it at 10 minutes. Anyways, that's my point. I love this idea. You know, it's a little bit weird that I'm saying it's like do it like nobody's watching, but then of course I am putting it on YouTube where anybody could watch. So it is public, it is available, but yeah, it's a cool theme and I'd like to just embody that more and practice that more, especially with this and keep it going. So happy Sunday.